Welcome back to another conversation. If you remember correctly, how we explain this channel is that here we talk about economics, we talk about politics, and we talk about social issues. And how do you make this connection, by the way? As Gujiri Wambogo, this is how I believe the priority runs. First, we start with politics. And this is because primarily in Kenya, politics is such a major what do you call it? It's such a major ingredient about how, as a country, we operate. So you realize that politics affects how we socialize, who we hang out with, what our social conversations are. If you go to eat nyama choma, like if you come to Rware and you want to do some nyama choma, you can be sure at some point the conversation will get into politics. You're socializing, yes, but you start talking about Raila, talking about Ruto, about Uhuru, because the politics of our country is such an integral part of how we relate with one another. It actually determines how we socialize. The second thing, the politics of our country affects our economics. And this three-legged stool of politics, economics, and social integration and social affairs is a very critical part of how our state as a nation has been put together. And that is why it's important for us to keep looking at these issues. And this week, I want us to talk about next week I hear we're going to have a mother of all rallies in Nairobi, called by Azimio, called by Raila. And I'm just trying to understand where we are going with all these things. If you remember correctly, when I started this channel 2 months ago, we were just starting to build up to the whole issue of what were then being called public barazas. And the first thing I said is that these were not public barazas. These were going to end up being mass action. And I was called names by people. I said, no, it's our right. We have the right to hold meetings and to just discuss our issues. We're not calling for mass action. Well, 2 months down the road, it is now open. It is mass action. And I want to predict here that in a very short while, this mass action is going to actually result in what is called civil disobedience. And when we get into civil disobedience, we're going to have the next stage from there is a collapse of social order. And the question I have to ask myself is, so why are we in this? Where is it? Where are we being taken? In fact, more specifically, where is Raila taking us as a country? What is his end state? What is his goal in the entire process? Opposition is a very important thing. And that is why it is important for us not to beat up in opposition, because when you have a government on one end, you require a very vibrant and very strong opposition to do a couple of things. One, it provides accountability. It holds this government. It's able to poke holes into it. It's politicians on one side going after politicians on the other side. Because when all is said and done, whether a politician is in opposition or in government, they're both politicians. They understand the rules of the game and they're able to go at each other properly. So it's very important to have a strong opposition made up of politicians. And we have one in the country. We have a very strong opposition. The second thing opposition does, it provides alternatives, alternative narratives. So when the government says they have done this, the opposition can come and say, no, they haven't done this. They actually did this because of this. This is important. It creates two sides. It stops us from being a single narrative nation. The third thing is that it provides us with balance. It's very important for a country to have balance. Our politics needs to be balanced. When we lean on either side, if we have too much government in our lives, we're going to have a problem. But then also, if we have too much opposition, we're going to have a problem. And that is now where I'm starting to think we're going. Let's start with the reality. Our country right now is in quite a difficult economic situation. If you look at the dollar, for anybody who works on import and export, people who sell cars, people who trade, whether it's small-scale traders in Nyamakema or even in China place, the people who are bringing in things from outside, they will tell you we're in a very difficult place. The dollar is rising. It's gone to a place I don't think it has been in over the last 20, 30 years. And it's not stopping. It's still rising, right? And again, the dollar is not even available in the marketplace. So we're having a problem with our foreign exchange. The second thing we're having a problem is that we have drought. The rains still haven't come the way they should. So we still have a very hungry population. And as you're told, a hungry population is an angry population. We're also having a problem. We have a new government that hasn't settled. This is 7 months down the road from the last election. And you can actually feel there's still a sense of instability within the government. We have a lot of flux. We have a lot of transitions going on. Every day there's somebody who's been appointed somewhere, somebody's appointment has been revoked, to a point where I can imagine even if you're in public service right now, even if you're in office, you're not sure whether you're in office, because any day you could be removed. So in a situation where we are in a government that is in flux, there's a government that doesn't have confidence in itself and its ability to do what it's supposed to be doing. That is where we are right now. Now, the problem is we have an opposition that is in full campaign mode. On Saturday, Azimio had, I think, 4 or 5 rallies within the Rift Valley, the Narok side. And these rallies were very well attended. If you came into the country right now, you'd think we are at the final stages of doing a general election. That is where we are. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with all these things that are going on. We did it from 2017, 2022. That's all we did. We did campaigns. The only difference here is that I am not sure where opposition is going with this story. Because let's be honest, if you call Kenyans to Nairobi in the middle on a Monday, and you tell them to come to Nairobi to exercise their right for picketing, it's a right. But what's going to happen in Nairobi on that day? Nairobi will shut down. Nairobi shuts down. Nairobi is the capital city of our country. There will be an effect of some kind to the rest of the country. And I'm sure that is why Raila is doing what he's doing. He wants to be felt. He wants an impact to be felt. Now, the question I keep asking myself is, to what end? How will this impact benefit the ordinary Wanjiko who is struggling to buy food, who is struggling to pay school fees, who is struggling to pay their fuel or their electricity? If we continue in the path that we've been taken by Azimio, what is the end state? I listened to my former colleagues speak about where they want to go with Azimio, and they want to eject Ruto from government. And I'm like, okay, so how do you do that exactly? How do you do that peacefully? How do you do that in a way that people don't lose their lives? How do you do that in a way that the country doesn't go into violence? I don't see how that is going to happen. So essentially, we are just being manipulated into a position where we're actually going to start fighting each other as a country. And I'm asking myself, why? To what end? If this is about politics, we are going to have another general election in 4 years and 3 months. Why don't we start preparing for that one? Why don't we just campaign towards that end of changing this particular administration according to the Constitution? Because I honestly, as much as I do not support everything that the government is doing, I also have a problem with what opposition is doing. And I have a problem with what opposition is doing for the simple reason that they're taking us in a path that is going to make our lives more difficult rather than better. I wish what opposition was saying is that once we do mass action, once we do public barazas, once we get out in the streets and cause civil disobedience, once we boycott products. By the way, why are we boycotting products? The other day I heard Raila say he wants us to boycott eggs. Do you know how many people in Nyeri town alone make their living from selling eggs? So when you start saying we are going to boycott eggs, we are boycotting which eggs? Eggs don't have a mark. So you can't know that these eggs are sold by this particular person. You need to boycott these ones. What are we doing? It's like we are in a roller coaster or in a train that is hurtling to an accident, to hit a cliff or to drive off a cliff. And we are watching it and we are just allowing it to go. And because part of it is the anger I mentioned. Kenyans are angry because Kenyans are hungry, because Kenyans are broke. There's no money in circulation. So Kenyans are angry. And what is happening is that now we are being manipulated by the national political leadership from the opposition side to shape our anger and direct it towards chaos. The problem is that as we direct it towards chaos, we are hurting ourselves even more. I do not know how creating chaos in Nairobi is going to help the Wanjiko in Nairobi, right? You'll be given 1,000 shillings for that day. Because I suspect, the way, I'm a politician. And I know how you work. Today, if you give me 1,000,000 shillings, I can bring you 1,000 people out of the street, right? And they will come because finances are low, the economy is bad, cost of living is up. If you can give somebody 1,000 shillings to come and heckle in the street, he will come. But then at the end of that day, he will go into an environment that is already poisoned. Our social structure is going to have fractured. Our economy is messed up. Our politics is divisive. So where are we going as a country? And every time I want to ask this question, I want to ask our leadership. And I want to ask us, because now, one of the two statements that Raila made recently is that we are a sovereign state and our sovereignty is in us, the people. And maybe we need to stand up and ask ourselves, as the people, do we want to follow these leaders in the direction they're taking us? Or is it time for us to create new leadership? Last week, we had a very strong hashtag, and it's important for us to remember, and it was a lesson for all of us to understand how a hashtag picked up on the anger that exists in people online and forced the government to actually take action on something they looked like they were slowing down on. The hashtag I'm talking about is called Justice for Jeff. And that hashtag has generally built its own momentum. Now, we even had a situation where the CS for Interior did something I'm not sure he's supposed to do, which was to instruct the DCI to investigate something. As far as I'm concerned, the DCI is supposed to be an independent office. But anyway, I could imagine that the reason Kindiki felt he needed to do that is because of the pressure, social pressure that was coming up online on that hashtag. Now, if we are able to do that, if we are able to galvanize social support to make certain things happen, maybe it's time we started asking ourselves whether we want to galvanize social support to stop certain things from happening. For example, do we really want to get manipulated into going into chaos as a country in a way that doesn't benefit us? Let's assume that the direction that Raila goes succeeds for him. What's going to happen? He's going to get a handshake. He might even get half of government. Whatever it is that's going to happen is going to benefit him. How is it going to benefit the rest of us? Is your life going to change because we got into a moment of chaos? Somebody could say maybe there'll be balance, but we can create this balance by just having an aggressive, active opposition that doesn't lead us into chaos. And this is my problem. I watch this particular opposition, with all due respect, they are shepherding us as a people into a direct confrontation with each other. Because remember, the policeman who will come to stop a demo is a Kenyan, most probably a brother of yours, who is also buying unga at 200 bob. But now he's under instructions to come and stop you from causing chaos. So you guys clash. He has a firearm, he has a baton, you have a stick or a knife or an illegal firearm, you cause chaos, and somebody dies. And then what? So this is a question I want to ask us as Kenyans. This direction we're going, is it time for us as the Kenyan people to call ourselves into a kamushamanio, into a meeting, and ask ourselves whether this is the direction we want to go? We need a strong opposition, yes we do, but is it this one? Or is it time for us to start thinking about an opposition that is independent of what we're seeing? We need a strong government. Are they delivering what we need them to deliver? How do we make them deliver what we need them to deliver? Can we organize ourselves the way we are doing online and even on the ground and force this government to deliver what we need them to deliver for us today? So the question I'm asking myself, is it time for us to start thinking about alternatives of leadership at national level, at local level, primarily starting from the opposition? Because where we are going right now, the government is already in place. And unless we cause violence or we have a civil strife, we're not removing this government until the next election. And I personally, as much as I did not vote for this government, I do not want us to create a precedent where we can force a government out of office because we don't like how they won. We need to be able to follow the law even when we're not happy with it. It can't be that tomorrow, if I'm the one who wins and you don't like how I won, you are allowed to go to the street and remove me from office forcefully. That is wrong. We can't build a state like that. So can we wait for 4.5 years, go back to the elections and remove this government if that's what we want to do? In the meanwhile, can we hold them to account to reduce the cost of living, to reduce the cost of electricity, to reduce the school fees that we're sending? And are we able to do that in a way that doesn't cause chaos? I want somebody to tell me that going to the street and causing mass action and boycotting products is going to reduce the cost of living. I don't see how. Maybe I'm the one who doesn't understand. So that's my position for this week. As you can see, I have a lot more questions than answers, but let's think about this. And as we meet again next week, God willing, we'll continue this conversation and ask ourselves, how do we organize ourselves as a people? How do we stop being manipulated by a few leaders for their own selfish interests? Can we organize ourselves and manipulate ourselves for our own selfish interests? Cost of living, the issue of foreign exchange, the issue of security. We have parts of this country that have become ungovernable because of insecurity. How do we make Kenya a sustainable, stable state that people can invest in. Right now, why would I want to invest in a country that seems like it's rushing itself into civil confrontation? If I was an investor, why would I can't put money in anything that is tangible unless you guys burn it up. So we are actually shooting ourselves in the foot, and we are doing it deliberately as we see. So we need to have these questions, and let's do this conversation next week. So again, as usual, if you're in Nyeri, please pass by Rware. We still have good choma, good pilau, good cup of tea, good githeri, and a good ambience. Come and chill out with us. Let's talk. And we are going to be trying to polish up this show that we're doing and maybe bring in a couple of people as we go on. And let's try and make this better. So all the best. God bless you. God bless Kenya.